Last step now was to get the student, on extempore. The assessment had a situation, it has a situation and a task. So you see that the students used the presentational mode, and here they had to talk for 1 minute about the differences and similarities on the students in Martinique, schedule, and theirs. Bonjour, I am Dorah, French teacher and Extempore ambassador. In this classroom connection video, I will share with you the connection between the lesson, the activities, and a follow-up on extempore. So in this example, you will have a walkthrough of the lesson, the activities, and how the students were prepared to complete a presentational task on extempore. Let's go. This lesson was about schools, schedules, and subjects. L'emploi du temps, les matières scolaires. And of course, this is French too. We're a little bit behind, with the pandemic. And so what was the objectives of the lesson? Students will learn about school schedules and subjects. The goal here is to improve the students' speaking and comprehension skills by increasing their vocabulary expressions and, of course, the concept around French school system and creating sketchnotes. Students also compare and contrast their schedules and opinions by using a French-speaking country, that's the student's schedule, to complete the task on extempore. So while they use all these, to attain all these goals, the students will also use transition words. This is my students' prior knowledge. They know their numbers, telling time, cognates, expressions of opinions, of course, likes and dislikes, and basic questions. So in this lesson, the students be able to use, à mon avis, je pense que, which is I think, or je déteste, je n'aime pas, etc. At the beginning of the lesson, it was sort of like a self-learning moment. Students worked on the self-pace, and they had 2 days to complete the assigned content. So for example, for the warm-up, students will read and identify words from this word cloud, and they only had to identify cognates and complete the chart that you see on the right-hand side, of course, in their notebook. And students showed understanding of the French words, thus reducing the number of new words that they had to learn, because French and English have a lot of cognates. And of course, here we may have had 1 or 2 cases of false cognates. So after that activity, the students they use my recorded audio files and the QR code to practice pronunciation of these new words, these new vocabulary words. And also, they had to complete a tally mark activity for self-assessment. In activity 4, which is still day 2 window, students reinforce their listening skills, and this time they focus on the gender and the number of each subject by completing the T-chart of day 1. By so doing, my students will be ready to correctly use the noun-verb agreement when they later complete the speaking activities. Let it be the ones in class or the one on extempore. The guided practice for my student to be ready to perform on the task, they had to complete another self-checking for understanding task. And this time it was an interactive Google slide. The slide included a variety of listening, reading activities with questions and answers, all supported with visuals and immediate feedback. So as you can see, the student will have a feedback if their answer is correct or not, and they can go and reread and understand what is required before they move on to the next slide. Next, they watched a short video in French about the French school system. The student had to take notes, and in the shared language, which is English, and they completed a double bubble map. While they learn about the French customs, so this was just simultaneously. At the end of the self-learning process, students complete an exit ticket, and here they were required to identify and say the subjects on an image carousel, thus practicing their fluency and pronunciation. Now, day 3, I start with a password activity at the door. So I say the clues, and then the student had to guess the subject or the opinion, that is the feeling that I want them to express. Is it je déteste or j'aime, etc. Then in class, we reviewed question frames. You want to take note of the formula that you see here on the screen. These give choices to students to generate questions that are related to the lesson, of course, the subjects and the schedule. And the goal here was to get students ready to complete the survey with the classmates. So the quick review of où est ta classe de maths, comment s'appelle ton prof, etc. And especially the pourquoi, because with the pourquoi, the students will give reasons. And that was what I was looking for in this lesson. Next, the students have to complete the table, which is the survey, by first writing 3 things they selected from their school schedule. Next, they talked to 4 of their classmates. They had to write on the names and complete 2 rows with new information that they got from their peers. Asking any of the questions we reviewed and writing down the classmates' answers. So I had to freeze the slide on the board to kind of support the student that still needed that help, that scaffolding. The activity was connected, to extempore later on. You're going to see that later on, because I kind of thought of the extempore PDs that I attended this summer. And of course, this I could link to designing lessons for our Generation Z students with focus on real world connections, which led to relevance. Next, the student went back to their seat, they revisited their classmates' answers and completed the notes column of the table. So you see that on the right side of the table. In this section, students only had to write aussi, which is also, or mais, which is birth, because now they're identifying the similarities and the differences between their own schedule and their classmates' schedule. They use this information to compare, the schedule later by creating their sketch notes. The next day, they had to be ready for the 1-minute talk. And why 1 minute? 1 minute because already on extempore, they will also have just a minute to do their presentational mood, and so in class, they got closer to getting students ready for the extempore task. The presenter, that is the student, had their sketch notes, while their peers were active listeners. They had to pay attention and circle the presenter's name on their own survey table if their name and information was mentioned correctly. Of course, this was later kind of quick feedback. They had to put up their hand and say, hey, yeah, mine was mentioned correctly, etc. And of course, the last step now was to get the student, on extempore. The assessment had a situation. It has a situation and a task. So you see that the students used the presentational mode, and here they had to talk for 1 minute about the differences and similarities on the students in Martinique schedule and theirs. At this point, students don't need their sketchnotes anymore. They generate ideas, information based on what they see on this uploaded document, uploaded file. And of course, they have 1 minute using the vocab and everything that they learn during the lesson. So here you have samples of my student work. You have the class survey. You see how it was completed. And of course, there are samples of 2 sketch notes that I just put in here. So now let's move on to the closing thoughts. Just a quick recap. Students completed a variety of activities, as mentioned earlier, with focus on listening, speaking, writing, and presentational activities in class and on extempore. As you can see, all these activities prepared the students to be ready to use meaningful and relevant language on extempore. Tell me how you can use this lesson and activities in your class. Thank you for watching these Classroom Connection videos. À bientôt.